All of that should bring down the costs of trade very fundamentally. So there's a lot riding on this across the region, and that is why we are so interested. We're also interested, frankly speaking, because this part of the growth plan also provides the existing member states with significant benefits, because it would be expanding the internal market, not just for you, but also for the EU 27. So from our perspective, I'm greatly encouraged by the work that you have undertaken, by the meeting that is being hosted today. The offer is there. We are fully available. It's a top priority for the European Commission. You know, our President, my Commissioner, are fully committed to this, and we will make available the resources to work with you to realize this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Assistant Secretary James O'Brien, we are happy to have you here with us today. Can you share your thoughts on the importance of the United States support to the European Union efforts to move on the reform path of the Western Balkans and to deliver the single market access benefits? United States is by far the largest market in the world, and from that perspective you can best describe the benefits of a European single market.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. The leaders and some of us had dinner last night, and we talked about the importance of hope, that with a bit of work, we can make things better. And that's what this meeting represents. And I think Gert-Jan Koopman just outlined exactly how. So let me walk through how the U.S. views this. We have long supported the European aspirations of this region. I was in Skopje the first time in 1996, and this was what we discussed. And it's never been closer, and the progress is bringing us ever yet closer to realizing the benefits. It's also a matter of hope, because the European Union keeps innovating. And this growth plan is fundamentally different from the offers that have come before, because it says if we do the practical work, each state does the practical work, it and its citizens will get the benefits. And at a basic level, we'll talk about the monetary benefits, but this is just about freedoms. The freedoms of the single market that lets people, goods, services, capital move. That's happening. It's happening in a way that empties out societies. Now it can happen from these societies. And that's what's on offer with this approach. So the U.S., as I said, we strongly support the idea. We spend in the region on assistance something like $200 million, a little less a year. My colleague Erin McKee from the Agency for International Development is in charge of much of that work. And we'll remain committed as part of it. But now we're very focused on bringing the region into the single market as a piece of that. So what in practical terms are we going to decide to do today? The first, we'll begin identifying specific initiatives that will be visible to businesses and citizens across the region. So Gert-Jan mentioned a couple of them. The single European payment area, it's 500 million euro a year once it's put in place. What it means for each individual, it probably is a saving of 5%, give or take a percent or two, every time money's transferred in and out of the region. That's a pretty substantial improvement in people's pockets right away. Secondly, the green lanes. So when we first began to look at this issue a few years ago, the most recent studies showed that trucks spent more than 80% of their time waiting at the borders across the Western Balkans. That means it's impossible to run a business that depends on cross-border transfers, because it's completely irregular when the spare parts show up or when your goods will be delivered to market. There have been some good progress on this work. Melinda Bregu and the team from the Regional Cooperation Council has done some good work. We're trying to make progress. The green lanes were a real breakthrough, and now we will look at how we expand those. that should make it possible then for each country to begin working, have its citizens work across border, to have businesses that work across the region and that work into Europe. So the costs will come down from more than double what it costs for a European company to outsource within the Union to basically comparable with what happens in the European Union. It's huge benefits. We've started discussions on some improvements on other ideas, including around electricity generation, transmission, and trading. We'll continue those conversations as we go forward. So over the next months, you should see practical initiatives. We'd love to hear them. We have civil society representatives here. Chambers of Commerce have been very active. Let's hear the ideas, and we'll develop them. The second practical thing we will do today is develop a mechanism to implement. So many of the processes that people like us come to discuss in these meetings sound very abstract, and they involve meetings and people flying to and from Brussels. We will, at the end of the day, have an idea of a very specific group of people who will work to develop and implement the initiatives we are discussing and deliver them. And we'll do that in a way that's transparent, so if we fail, you can hold us to account. And that, I think, is a really important point, because the political leaders here are willing to take a risk politically to say that this is important for their citizens. And I admire that, and I support it. And then I see a lot of people in the audience who will be the ones who have to actually do the work. So congratulations, you know, have a lot of work to do. And out of all that, we should see real progress. And that's the third point, which again, Gert-Jan mentioned, but I want to emphasize. In this process, nobody gets to veto each other. Each country works on its own, maybe in small groups with others, but nobody gets to stop a deal from going forward because they have some unrelated bilateral dispute. Any country that tries will suffer some consequence itself. But this sets the pace allows a small group of countries to decide how it's going to move forward, as long as we're all headed the same way. If some country wants to wait, sit, watch, then it's for the citizens of that country to decide whether those political leaders are the right ones. And I think what I was really encouraged by in our discussion is how much each of the leaders recognize the importance of moving forward in this way. So with that, again, I think this is a really hopeful meeting, but it's also a promise for hard work from all of us sitting at this table and the people who will be helping to implement the agreements. And we'll keep checking back to see how we're doing over the next months. And hopefully we will see a very real change in the opportunity available to citizens across the countries of the region.
Thank you, Jim. Now I would like to invite President Alexander Vučić.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for your great hospitality, Dimitar, and many thanks to all the other participants. We have just heard from Mr. Kopman and O'Brien everything that we needed to know, and I'm not going to take a lot of your time. Just wanted to say that I don't see real political risk on any of the participants here apart from us. But anyway, it's something that we see as a great initiative, and I'll tell you why. For us, it's more important green lanes than single European payment area, which is also important. I'm not neglecting or underestimating the importance of SEPA, but for us, green lanes are of an utmost importance, and also that will be very helpful in creating a better business environment for our people, but also for all the others that would like to invest into this region. And speaking about common regional market, we'll be fully open for all the ideas, ready to deliver on it, and I believe that we'll be able to do so. And I have a big plea for all of you from regional organizations and from European Union to be helpful to us on some issues, because we'll have to resolve some difficult problems that we'll face with. And you know that we have to align ourselves, speaking about economic measures, subsidy policies and everything else before we enter European Union, not before we enter single European market, which means that if there are some measures already taken by the countries or entities, whatever, it's, let's say, if we want to incentivize companies that are investing into Serbia, we cannot oblige ourselves that we are going to stop before 2025 or 2026, because we don't know whether we're going to be a part of European Union. Okay, we know that we are not going to be a part of European Union in these years, and we cannot shoot our own leg. And these are the issues that we'll have to raise. And many thanks if you'll get more understandings from this part of our job, because I don't believe that we are going to make or will have any type of political problems stopping someone or making some other type of measures against anyone. I believe these are the issues that we'll have to discuss and to resolve as soon as possible. Everything else is good, because I think connecting the region, as we did, let's say, in an open Balkan regarding working licenses, and if we sign this protocol, that will be the great news for the people in 3 countries. And this is what we can do in an entire Balkan, and this would be the good news for the people. And it's good that we have been discussing so far economy and people. That is something that I believe that we can always find a common denominator, which is good. Thank you, and sorry that I took a lot of your time.
Thank you, President Vučić, and I would like to ask Prime Minister Rama on his opinion about the growth plan and whether it is the right offer at the right time for the EU and the Western Balkans to get closer.
Thank you, Dimitar, and I want to especially thank the U.S. Assistant Secretary, our friend, I might say, Jim O'Brien, for joining us, and by doing so for underlining the importance that the initiative has, not just for our countries, but for the stability, peace, and prosperity of this region. And in the same time, I want to thank, not diplomatically, but wholeheartedly, Gert Koopman, not Koopman, Koopman. You understand? It's Koopman, because he's Dutch, he's not Brit. For having been so keen to push this process, and we were just recalling that a year ago he had to face in Tirana kind of edge of melancholy on my side vis-à-vis the European Union, and so he was very much patient to listen to what has been in fact our main frustration. The fact that the process of integration has been so far, you get all if you become a member, but you get nothing until you become a member. And when I say nothing, I'm not gonna say that the peanuts we are getting from IPA are not relevant. But I'm saying that the gap between what the member states get from being part of the EU and what we get is devastating. And as a matter of fact, all the convergence efforts are just pathetic. This is the fact. So one of our neighbor countries, you name it, that is part of the EU, gets from the EU every year 4,000 and some €100 per citizen from the EU, out of the budget. And we here, we get 123 euros per citizen. This is the gap. I know we deserve it because we are not the best guys you can find in Europe, but still. And so since a year things have developed, and we are at this point in time with something that is huge. It's huge. It's not huge for what we will get from it, but it's huge for a dramatic change in the attitude of the European Union towards the Western Balkans, which is not just about principles and peanuts, but it's about a different way to see it as, and a different way to understand our being here. Europeans without you. So E, not EU. Important, very important for us. And I would say that in the meantime, this is incredibly challenging, but also incredibly beneficial if we really want to become part of this family. And when I say really want, I mean when you really want something, you are ready to make sacrifices. You are ready to give something from yourself and not just play the winner takes all thing that we have seen all these years around us. So it's a test of maturity for us, big test of maturity, and we have to pass it. And it's also a moment in time that I want to underline and to raise, as a matter of fact, just a question. Can you imagine how, in what a much better place we would have been today if we would have been much more serious in the regional integration, if we had been much more serious in dealing with the real stuff that was supposed to be the case when Berlin process started. But Berlin process is a process that it's one day of the year with a year in between and then another day. That's why we also launched the Open Balkans. It was kind of a target for daily politics. It was a target for power games, not just within the region, but also in Europe. But in fact, what we did, we tried to push an agenda of agreements that is part of this growth plan and single market. This is it. And when I was saying that while we have to wait, it's not in our hands only, that EU gets us in. Let's get each other in. Everyone is saying, no, no, no. And we even heard, I even heard from a very distinguished professor, former Prime Minister of Montenegro, who said to me, we cannot join this process of signing deals with you because we'll join EU in 2022. It's true. I'm not, he said to me. And I was so impressed, and I said, come on, you join first in this, and then if you join EU, we shut down all our countries and we join Montenegro. So we entered 2024, and I'm not informed that Montenegro is in EU. Maybe it has happened. So to cut it short now, because I am very encouraged and very energized by this, and you know, being energized by a concrete EU step is something historic. It's historic. It's something dramatic. So forgive my enthusiasm and my optimism. I'm not stupid, I tell you, but it's really a good reason to be optimistic today after having had a dinner last night, you know, and having had a dinner where suddenly we realized that, you know, we can. We can have a civilized conversation, and we can think about economy and people without getting history in the middle of two meals. And it sounded much better, the food, which in Macedonia is not very easy. So, sorry, Dimitar, but you know, when it comes to food, you have to accept that you are not the best in the region. Two things. First, we need to set a political circle, like we were last night, to be meeting in regular base, because although we are very enthused today, we are still Balkan people, you know, and if you don't come and bring us together, we are ready to fuck up again. So technically, secondly, the technical coordination, it's very important that the ministers of integration of our 6 countries get a clear message from the leadership. They should be agnostic of history, and they should be Daltonic. Daltonism is a kind of disease that forbids you to see the colors. So they should not see the colors of the flags. They should not realize, they should forget what colors has every flag of our countries. And their only flag should be, you know, the make it or break it of the EU. So they should sit down and go just technically in every detail, green lanes and all this and all this and all this, to make it happen. So for history and for flag colors and for whatever, it's enough to have the leaders. The ministers have to forget history and to forget the colors, and there is only one color, the color of the flag of the European Union, if we want to do it, if we don't want to lose it, you know, because we should not forget that European Union is going to go to elections. We should not forget that European Union is in the best place. It's not in the best place. So, and as far as I remember, we have, the Balkan curse is that when they are in good shape, we are in bad shape. When we become in good shape, they are in bad shape. So it's never happened that we are both in good shape and we really want to do things together, and we can. So hopefully, you know, everything will go smoothly, and then with the new commission and with the new council, we'll be able to continue. And last but not least, I strongly believe that there is room for improvement again. There is room for improvement because we need to be more ambitious, and we need to ask for more. But let's do first what we can do now. And as far as Albania is concerned, we are very happy to not be the most patriotic and the most, you know, connected to the colors and to the history in this gathering. And we are keen and we are ready to work with everyone and to help everyone and to push with everyone together to get this done. If we do this, it will be major for our people. It will be major for our countries. It will be major for all of us. And this is the most important thing that we can leave behind us. Because I'm sure that the fights we make with each other, yeah, we are good in making them, but others will continue to make, and will not be remembered for the fights. But what will be remembered maybe is for having done something concrete for our business people, for our citizens, for everyone. And this will improve also the room of conversation among each other. So let's start, dear Gert Kopman, with telling our Bosnian friends that they have to ratify the decision of allowing the citizens of Kosovo to move freely. So this would be a good way to start. And in the same time, my pledge is that we will push forward as much as we can to do everything we have to do with the others, and again, will be very, very helpful. And by the way, let me also conclude by telling that we are inviting all the leaders of this Western Balkan club to join in the Western Balkan Summit for Ukraine with President Zelensky in Tirana around the end of February. This is not about growth plan, but this is about also maybe exchanging with Ukraine some experience about how to fight corruption and how to make reforms that can help us be as good as Ukraine in approaching the EU, because we are hearing that we have to learn from Ukraine now, and we are not familiar of what they have done. And it would be great also to know how you can do reforms and how you can fight corruption with no electricity and under bombs from morning to the night, because it will boost our morale and it will make us believe that we can do marvels without bombs and with full electricity. So, but this we can discuss with President Zelensky. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie. After significantly increasing the number of inhabitants of Montenegro, realizing that it's great to sit next to the Dutch Kopman and having a Brit gear behind me, I firmly believe that significantly increasing the number of inhabitants of Montenegro.
Why? I did?
Because we can all join them.
And my cabinet has finally...
we will call it Blue Montenegro.
And my cabinet has finally realized that on the Balkans it's better to serve Macedonian cuisine than a French cuisine. I would like to move to Prime Minister Kurti to say his words.
Dear Prime Minister Kovachevski, Director General for Neighborhood and Enlargement Negotiations, Mr. Kopman, dear Assistant to Secretary of State, Mr. O'Brien, Deputy General of EAS, Mr. Makovets, thank you for gathering us here to discuss about the EU growth plan for the Western Balkans. Last year in October, at the Berlin Process Summit in Tirana, I expressed our support for the EU growth plan based on the 4 pillars. We believe that the European Union can both reform and enlarge, and that the benefits of the European Union single market must be linked to economic and democratic reforms. Berlin process came out of certain lack of the sense of urgency for enlargement, whereas now growth plan comes out of the sense of urgency for enlargement, at large extent due to the Russian aggression, continuous Russian aggression in Ukraine. This our meeting comes after the meeting at the level of finance ministers, held also here in the North Macedonia, on the 17th of November, and after the meeting of the 24th of November in Brussels, where a series of reforms have been discussed by 3 cabinet ministers and my first deputy prime minister. As we speak, our team is finalizing our reform agenda and will submit it to the European Union. This comprehensive reform agenda seeks to further reform public administration and advance public financial management. It places a special focus on the green agenda and digitalization. In the private sector area, it strives to enhance investments and exports and further increase access to finance. It aims at ensuring quality education and alignment with labor market needs. And most importantly, this reform agenda will further advance the fight against corruption and organized crime and strengthen the protection of fundamental rights. We are also preparing an indicative list of projects aimed at closing infrastructural gaps and boosting economic development to be financed through the Reform and Growth Facility, subsequently accelerating growth and convergence with the European Union. We fully endorse the approach which conditions EU funds with EU values, increases the benefits for all citizens of the Western Balkans 6 now, and at the same time accelerates full membership into the European Union for those who are committed. We believe that membership in the European Union should be driven by merits and based on values. This growth plan is not just a possibility for reforms and economic growth, but also a chance for closer regional cooperation and integration among the Western Balkan countries. We must therefore be constructive in our engagement and conscious of the transformative power of our decisions. As shown in the last 3 years with the improvement on democratic and economic indicators, Kosovo is ready for reforms. For the region to integrate economically and for the citizens to get closer, security threats must cease. Deeper integration and increase of flow of people and goods requires mutual trust and normal relations among our countries, institutions, and our people. This cannot happen if the freedom to goods is used to move weapons and ammunition or to sponsor terrorist attacks. Normalization of relations based on mutual recognition, I believe, is key to unlock the potential of the region and increase the well-being of our citizens. Membership in the European Union is fundamentally a choice. In a liberal democracy, the power of government is limited by the rule of law, and the freedom and rights of individuals are protected by the Constitution. European Union represents also a strategic choice of the leadership of a country. It is our job, therefore, to deliver on the reforms and meet the conditions, and for the European Union to judge on merits and guard the EU fundamental values. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albin. I would like to invite now Prime Minister of Montenegro, Spajic.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, thank you for the invitation and gathering here today to discuss the very important topic of growth plan for Western Balkans, the future of common regional market and integration with the European single market. As well as I wanted to reiterate our readiness to further our vision of you joining Montenegro and becoming a Piedmont of the Western Balkans. So I want to say that that vision is still alive, and it's we are still very much in line with that. As the whole region progresses in terms of EU accession process, it is crucial at this point to recognize that the final objective of EU membership is not just to be formally part of EU community, but to achieve deep economic integration, which is the most important. To provide to our citizens very visible economic benefits and empower them economically, at least at the level of EU average. So at least at that level. The private sector, when I was in Davos, I had an opportunity to meet 52 leaders from the private sector. And I think all of us here are here to serve our citizens, but also to engage the private sector and see how can we help private sector move in and do more business within the region. It's critical that the EU's private sector take a look at us. And you know, if I was like trying to come up with what kind of clues the EU businesses are interested in and what's stopping them and what's preventing them from being more engaged with the region. So the biggest concern is the true opportunity for all of us to join EU. And you know, they say that we see a lot of political messages from EU, we see a lot of talk, but we want to see EU walking the walk. They want to see the money coming into the region from the EU. So they want to see the real development of the region, and they want to see more engagement from the EU. And I think the EU growth plan is exactly that. And it's a really big opportunity for all of us. Not only to, all of us, like fiscally, I think we are in pretty good, okay shape, and I think all of us can be an example maybe to some of the EU member states as well in terms of the fiscal discipline. But in much more profound way, I think EU growth plan is a big signal to EU businesses to invest and to engage our countries. And it's a signal that this region will for sure be part of the big market, big EU market, because it's not the same thing if you invest in Montenegro, for example, and if you have uncertainty, if your market is going to be 500,000 people or 500 million people. It's 1000x difference. So as any business, obviously, they need to know, is this going to be 500,000 or 500 million? And less uncertainty they have, more willingness they would have to in investing in Montenegro and all of our countries. So everything that connects us closer to EU, such as SEPA, such as Common Regional Market, that is completely in line with EU rules and regulations and is a step forward. The EU's Common Market we are definitely supporting, and we as a country will do our utmost at every level, political, technical, parliament, will do whatever it takes to get us and the whole region as close to EU as possible. I think it's really the time that there is a lot of interest in the region from the businesses around the EU, but as I say, we need to encourage them. We need to send the message of togetherness. In Montenegro, we have Serbs, we have Albanians, we have Bosniaks, we have Croats. We are lacking a little bit Macedonians, so you guys have to work on that. Maybe after you join Montenegro, so you'll be part of the game. So I think we understand the market, the regional market very well. We want to engage with all of the countries. We want to be good neighbors. We want to help everybody. We want to increase the economic ties. We need to increase infrastructure links. I was telling that Montenegro is in the heart of Montenegro. All of us, we are in the heart of Europe, but actually we are not really connected to Europe as much. And infrastructure is something that is lacking, really lacking. Sometimes we hear from our Western friends that highways are not needed and highways are not really important. But I think some people forget how Germany or how France has developed. Germany has developed not because of the car industry, but because it built highways first, immediately after the Second World War. Because it repaired its airports, because it repaired its railway system, because it has a fantastic connectivity within the country and with the other countries. And this is what we need to build, really need to build. Yes, CO2 emissions. Let's see how can we work around it. Let's see how can we introduce more electric cars, how can we incentivize people to go hybrid, to do all of these things. But physical connectivity in the region is a big problem, and it's a big bottleneck for all of us. Of course, the borders, waiting at the borders is another problem, but that's something that we can solve even within our own in bilateral relationships. So, of course, EU has to be there to ensure that that these bilateral agreements absolutely they're 100% in line with the EU standard and everything else. But we want to do the homework ourselves as well. We don't want to be waiting and hoping that the best comes to us. We want to be proactive. We want to. I told my ministers and I told everybody in the government and in the parliament. We say one thing, then the European Commission says, "Oh, that's not good," and that's usually in most of the cases that's where the conversation stops. No, that's where the conversation has to start. And then we have to iron out all the details why something is possible or is not possible, and to understand each other better. Because when I personally went into the details of most of these problematic issues, or things that we are negotiating on with the EU or with anybody else, actually you realize that most of the time this is misunderstanding of what we are trying to achieve or what EU wants. So I think we need even more communication with EU, and deeper and more engagement. So eventually, I think what it again comes down to is that we have to do our part of the deal as well. We as Montenegrins, I think we are pushing very hard since the formation of the new government and new majority. I think you can see the new wave and new political will that definitely exists now, new technical capability that maybe didn't exist until recently. So we are ready to push forward as fast as possible, but we are also ready to engage with our neighbors and help if we can, and also be very constructive on all the topics that we are discussing here in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Miki. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Prime Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Borjana Krišto, could not join us today in person, so let us see her video address.
Poštovani premijeru Republike Sjeverne Makedonije, gospodine Kovachevski, dopustite mi da vas kao domaćina današnjeg sastanka, lidera u okviru konferencije Plana rasta Zapadni Balkan ususret Evropskoj uniji, srdačno pozdravim. Također upućujem srdačne pozdrave i nazočnim kolegama premijerima te predsjednicima iz regije, koje smo već imali priliku protekli tjedan i osobno da se vidimo u Davosu na Svjetskom ekonomskom forumu, te da razgovaramo na mnogobrojne teme, uključujući i temu današnje konferencije, a to je novi paket plana rasta Evropske unije za našu regiju. Temeljem naših dosadašnjih mnogobrojnih obveza i razgovora, pa i na ovu temu, jasno je kako smo svi skupa svjesni značaja iskrenog dijaloga i nužnosti naše bliske suradnje, kako unutar regije, isto tako i sa Europskom unijom. Činjenica da imamo ovako visok stupanj usuglašenosti, pa čak i konsenzusa kad je u pitanju pristup, nadogradnja i implementacija novog plana rasta Zapadnog Balkana je dodatno ohrabrenje i poticaj za sve nas na dodatni rad. Budućnost naše regije ovisi primarno o našoj spremnosti da nastavimo suradnju koja će omogućiti da pronalazimo kompromise za trajna i održiva rješenja. U vremenu koje dolazi ispred nas, svakako je dobro da svi skupa ovo vidimo i kao povijesnu priliku koja će omogućiti unapređenje naših domaćih ekonomija, te kao alat koji će nam pomoći u procesu bržeg pristupanja Evropskoj uniji, što je nama u Bosni i Hercegovini od iznimnog značaja dok očekujemo žurno otvaranje pregovora. Poštovani kolege, uz ispriku što nisam s vama u Skopju, jer smo mi u Bosni i Hercegovini, danas i sutra domaćini predsjednice Evropske komisije, gospođi Ursuli von der Leyen, kao i premijerima Republike Hrvatske, gospodinu Plenkoviću i Nizozemske, gospodinu Ruteu. Od srca vas iskreno pozdravljam s uvjerenjem da će se naša dosadašnja dobra, kvalitetna i na budućnost usmjerena suradnja nastaviti i u razdoblju koje je pred nama. Hvala vam.
I would like to close this session with the views from Director Marko Makovec, who is here today on behalf of Vice President of the Commission, Borrell. Marko knows our region very well and at the same time is a firm believer that enlargement exists to make the European Union stronger. What role do you see for the growth plan on this road, dear Marko?
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister, first of all, for the invitation and for hosting this extremely important event. I don't need to add much more than you have already described in your intervention or appointment, but I just wanted to flag a couple of things. The enlargement process remains one of the most successful and powerful policies of the European Union, especially because of its transformative power. And this transformative power is also something that is driving the growth plan. And I'm, first of all, very happy to hear strong commitment, and I welcome it, strong commitment and determination of everybody here to work on the growth plan, which is the offer that EU has prepared in order to accelerate the integration of the region into the EU. But in order to achieve this, in order to access or to grant the access to the single market, we first need to work on opening the access of your markets to your neighbors. This is the precondition or the first step, and this is why the regional economic market is so important, and this is why we fully support the growth plan and especially the economic and regional cooperation of the region. I will not repeat the figures, how much GDP can this accumulate. It also has a very important political consideration. It is that the region will start to trade among themselves more, and this will benefit to all their citizens. The second thing that I also like to mention is the fact that politically it needs to, this initiative will also give a boost of political transformation and will help share the EU values in the region, something that is per se the main and the core of the enlargement process. But through this political and financial instrument, we will enhance that, we will try to enhance that, and therefore we believe that the instrument should have its constant meetings. It has been described or announced today, because at all of these meetings, beside the trade economic issues, also other political issues can be raised, and many of them can also be overcome. We will absolutely work on the growth plan to happen on time, and we are giving our full support to the Commission in all the questions necessary for this plan to happen, and together with the Presidency, I believe we will be also on time with all the procedures still during this setting of the Commission. Thank you very much once again, and I hope we will have a good proceedings in the negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Marko. And with this, I would like to close the first panel and invite you to a short break for a family photo. And we will resume the second panel at 11. Thank you.